Michigan with some linebacker help and also add to the defensive tackle room. And then, well, my goodness gracious, a Michigan Wolverine visited Michigan State. How is that any different than the Jaden Mangham situation, Sparty? Well, it's quite easy. I'll explain in the third segment. All right, let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week, especially all 5 of you that are going to be watching this live stream in the wee hours of Mother's Day. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Sometimes we like to mix in a little surprise show here on YouTube, but hey, even if you're on the podcast, thank you all so much for tuning in. And we got to start not by barking out the email, but by wishing everyone a happy belated Mother's Day for all the mothers out there, especially my own. That's right. My mom does listen to this podcast. She makes up roughly 1/3 of this listenership. So I cannot thank you enough, Mom. Love you out there. And hey, again, I hope everyone had a great belated Mother's Day. All right, let's get into the mix here. Actually, I'm sorry, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Please write in any questions, segment ideas, whatever you got. All right, now we can get into the show because Michigan State, they got some help in a room that needs a lot of love here for Michigan State football. We are talking the linebacker room, also a little bit that defensive tackle room. We'll talk more about that in the second segment, but we're going to work our way backwards. We're going to start with today, Sunday, Mother's Day. Di'Mari Malone, he commits to Michigan State. 3-star outside linebacker right here from the Mitten State. He plays at Macomb Dakota High School. 6'2", 220-pound player. And let's go through the numbers, the offers, the quotes, and then what I found on film that I really like about him. He's a number 773rd overall commit per the 24/7 Sports Composite, number 83 overall linebacker, and then the number 11 player in the state. The third commitment for the 2025 class, joining quarterback out of California, Leo Hannon, and then the second linebacker commit for this class early on. They're hitting the linebacker room early here, thank goodness. Charles White being the other one of Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Now, what our friend here, Mr. Malone, had as far as offers go: Illinois, Minnesota, Indiana, West Virginia, Rutgers. But at last, he commits to Michigan State after a few visits. He has an official coming up, which we're going to get to here in a second. But familiar with Michigan State and, well, a team that he rooted for growing up as a kid, telling Spartans Illustrated, quote, "To be an in-state guy committed to Michigan State is a big thing for me because I feel like what they have coming in the next couple of years is going to be some history, and I want to be a part of it while being an in-state guy." Also remarking, I've always been a Spartan fan. So when I open up his huddle film, his tape, what pops out to me? First and foremost, his first 2 plays are against Orchard Lake St. Mary's, so against teammate right there in Charles White. I thought that was pretty unique. But also, what sticks out to me specifically in his role as a linebacker is, my goodness gracious, this kid has a knack for some pass coverage here. And after the last few years of watching Michigan State football, guys, I don't know. You tell me, is help in the linebacker pass coverage game something Michigan State kind of sort of desperately needs? The answer is yes for those that actually missed the last few years of Michigan State football. But again, it's going to be a while since we see Di'Mari Malone here in East Lansing. He's got a senior season coming up. This is going to be a project, of course. But right there, what you see, he sticks with the tight end, sticks with the running backs out of the backfield, some slot receivers he's lined up against sometimes. And I know, I know that the pass game is more intricate in college. You're going to face better athletes in college than you do in high school. But right now, especially with his frame right now, 6'2", 220 pounds. I believe he was only 200 pounds last year as a sophomore. So he's a fluid athlete. I think that is something that could stick here in college, at least being maybe the Wayne Matthews in waiting. For those that don't know, that's the pass coverage linebacker that we got from Old Dominion. Pass coverage line. I just cannot emphasize how important and how much of a need it is for Michigan State to get someone that could cover the pass in the linebacking core. And also, guys, which we will get to in a little bit here, just how much Michigan State needs young linebackers in their room, because my goodness gracious, was that maybe a 10 neglected here by the last staff. But anyway, what is next for Di'Mari Malone? He has an official visit coming up June 7th. He will be visiting with Charles White, with Leo Hannon. So all three members of the 2025 class will be there, as well as two other guys that have locked in official visits. The two that will also be visiting on June 7th, Houston Kahayani Torres. We'll call him Houston Torres from here on out because I think I screwed up the first portion of his last name. I'm very sorry. But what's interesting about that, Houston Torres, a guy that's a 3-star offensive lineman, I believe he's a 4-star even on another site, visiting from Honolulu, Hawaii. No one ever in the history of mankind has ever flown from Honolulu, Hawaii to Lansing, Michigan just for fun. That tells you that kid is very serious about becoming a Spartan one day and playing for Jonathan Smith and Coach Maholchek one day. So we're going to have a lot of eyes on that visit on June 7th with Houston Torres. Also, the fifth guy that is locked in an official visit, Tyler Kielmeyer, 6'7" tight end out of Ohio. So hopefully that list grows. Hopefully it's not just 5 players right now, but the early indication is that, hey, the solid guys for the 2025 class will be in on June 7th. So let's start talking about why it's important. Because, first and foremost, good for Jonathan Smith, Joe Rossi to get another in-state kid. Start making those inroads with programs around the state of Michigan. That's the one knock coming in from the West Coast, is that he doesn't have much of a footprint in the Midwest. Okay? He has 2 of them right now, Charles White, Di'Mari Malone. That's a good start right there. But what you also like is that we are getting linebackers here because, look, I don't want to break my hand patting ourselves on the back here, but what I think we've done a good job with in the last year is treating the whole Mel Tucker situation fair. Have we gotten some shots in? Yeah, absolutely. I think they're well-deserved. The decision-making was very bizarre. But nevertheless, we've thrown him bones. We've given him his recruiting flowers when they deserve it. There are some positions that he did really well recruiting, guys, right? We've talked about tight end. All right, we might even see the benefits of strong tight end recruiting here in the Mel Tucker era this upcoming year. Now, with that said, there are some positions that were just borderline forgotten about or neglected or just had overall horrific strategies for recruiting, because from 2021 to 2023, so 3 recruiting classes under Mel Tucker, you've gotten 3 linebackers total. You've gotten now Teote. You got Quavion Carter. Both of those guys are in the portal. And then you have Jordan Hall. All right, that's a good pickup. But nevertheless, 3 linebackers in the last 3 recruiting classes for Mel Tucker. Now, sure, he patched up a few of the holes with Jacoby Windman. Quavaris Crouch was a nice little get here early on. Aaron Alexander was another add. You can patch up some holes. Again, we'll use that term again here and there. But ideally, you do want to build up the foundation of your position rooms through high school recruiting, and that's just something that was not around. Yes, he took some big swings and misses with the guys like 4-stars Kamar Mathudi, Jeremiah Beasley, Dylan Williams from the last class, and honestly, with everything that happened last year, they probably wouldn't have come here anyway. But even the years before 2024 recruiting, you weren't even getting a ton of linebacker visitors. So here Jonathan Smith is, here Joe Rossi is, they're coming to East Lansing. They're opening the door to the linebacker room, and they're saying, so that's cool. Wayne Matthews, which, by the way, was a transfer here because they had to get someone. He has 2 years left. Jordan Turner, another guy they had to go get in the transfer portal. He's got 1 year left. Cal Halliday, I believe this is it. I'm still a little spotty with how the COVID year works and everything, but he's probably out the door. And then Darius Snow with his injury, even if he can come back, again, guys, I'm very sorry. I'm so murky on who's eligible and who's not. I don't think that's a surefire starter. This is a long way of saying it's a thin room right now, and you got guys leaving pretty soon. So it's Jordan Hall, it's Brady Pretzloff, which, again, 2 great players. But then what? Like, where else are we in the linebacker room here? Well, luckily, we're going to be talking about another one in the next segment, and then another visitor in the third segment for this linebacker room, because you got to do some patchwork here. But first, need to talk your ears off about LinkedIn jobs. Folks, especially you small business owners, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to go check out LinkedIn jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find professionals for your team faster and for free. Now, LinkedIn isn't just your normal job board. LinkedIn helps you find professionals that you cannot find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a role, but might be open for the perfect opportunity. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, well, point blank period, guys, you are just not looking in the right place. Now, LinkedIn knows that you wear so many hats as a small business owner and might not have time or the resources to make that hire. So join the 2.5 million small businesses that use LinkedIn for their hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It truly is that easy to get started, guy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. I'll say it one more time. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so Michigan State, we just stated, end of last segment, they need help in the linebacker room as far as just numbers go. Of course, you hope that these all pan out to be fine players one day. But woo boy, howdy gee willikers. With just 3 committed linebackers in the last 3 classes for Mel Tucker, yeah, you need to fill in some slots there. Okay, guys. And, well, what did Michigan State start their weekend with on Friday? Well, would you look at that? A transfer linebacker who's young, who has Power 4 football experience. Welcome to East Lansing, Marcellius Pulliam. That's a great name, by the way. Marcelius Pulliam. That's what I'm talking about. 6'3", 230-pound linebacker from Miami. So we just talked about Di'Mari Malone. Probably your outside linebacker. Maybe even could slot into a nickel one day, but nevertheless, outside linebacker. When we're talking about Marcelius Pulliam, I would project more inside linebacker. Say when Cal Halliday leaves. Say when Jordan Turner leaves. All right, Marcelius Pulliam. Hey, you know what? You're going to be a junior. Maybe you will be grown into an inside linebacker role, but hey, we got a lot of time till we got to sort out who's going to be starting in 2025. Let's keep talking about what this kid is all about. Again, from Miami, we're talking to you. All right, he went to high school in Georgia. He committed to Miami. He played in 10 games for the Hurricanes, mostly on special teams. However, he did get 1 tackle against Bethune-Cookman and 1 interception already in his career against Boston College. So it's safe to say, Jonathan Smith, Joe Rossi, they just got him solely for the fact that he's got Boston College's number, and we're going to rock and roll in week 3 this upcoming season, guys. That's right. Golden Eagles. We have your kryptonite here. So, guys, again, this is very similar to what we're talking about with Malone in the first segment. Young linebackers, you need them. So what you get here out of the transfer portal, a guy with 3 years remaining. He fills the future need that we were just talking about. Power 4 football experience, inside linebacker. It's hard to say, I don't know if they should have gotten this guy. No, with everything that we just read, especially with the amount of scholarships Michigan State has to play with. And it wasn't always like this. I know we've had episodes a few weeks ago before the spring cycle talking about, well, they only got a few scholarships they could work with. Now, after the spring portal cycle, with the amount of players that left, you can be a little more liberal with who you are offering. And when it's someone like that, someone that can fill in a need with experience, yes, please. We will take that. Former 3-star in high school, too, if that is something that interests any of you fine folks out there. Now, there is another position that was neglected kind of by the last staff here, and it's very close to linebacker. It plays about 2 to 3 yards in front of them. It's the defensive tackle position. Michigan State, they got some help there with Jalen Satchell, defensive tackle out of Old Dominion. And that's right. That is the second Old Dominion transfer in this offseason, Wayne Matthews being the other one. Now, Jalen Satchell, he was committed to Houston so far in this offseason, but Michigan State just flipped him over to East Lansing. 6'1", 300-pound defensive tackle, which is 50 pounds heavier than he was in his freshman year at Temple. And I know I'm saying a lot of schools right now. Started at Temple, went to Old Dominion, committed to Houston, will likely be playing in East Lansing next year. But yes, it has been a journey for our guy, Jalen Satchell. Last year for the Monarchs, he played in 11 games. He started roughly half of them at the first half of the year, I believe is when that happened. So this is a guy with 2 years remaining. And here we go again, talking about the future of a position because, whoa, did we just forget about the interior defensive line here, guys, on the last staff? I don't know who it falls on. I don't know if that's just Tucker. I don't know if that's Hazelton. I don't know if it was whoever was coaching defensive line at the time, but my goodness gracious. Again, we threw some bones here, like defensive end recruiting was not the problem here at Michigan State. We're talking about the 2 guys in the middle that are here to stop the run, maybe get some pressure on the quarterback ever so often, eat up some blocks, because this is what you got right here on the defensive line. Of course, guys, Derek Harmon, he transfers. Simeon Barrow, he transfers. We know the story there. Daquan Dowse, 1 year left. Maverick Hansen, 1 year left. Ruquan Buckley, 2 years remaining. Alex Van Sumeren, yes, he has 3 years remaining. Former top 300 recruit, a guy that we're all excited about. Still coming off of 2 big injuries, so we, of course, got to tamper expectations for him. But nevertheless, the thesis of all of this is, wow, that's not a lot of guys coming back next year to a room that's already thin. Yikes. Actually, guys, in that 2021 to 2023 window, Mel Tucker got 2 interior defensive linemen. The first one, hey, being Derek Harmon. Great job. That was a good one, except one problem for this year. He's going to be playing for Oregon. That does not help Michigan State. And then the other one, of course, being Alex Van Sumeren. Now, he did have a smattering of guys that visited, so it's not lack of effort. It was, of course, just lack of execution. The lack of a plan B once guys like Vic Burley or David Stone or DJ Hicks said no to Michigan State. It's like you didn't have a plan B here. And this is how we get in a situation like this where the defensive tackle room, just like the linebacker room, can all ride on the same rowboat together probably, because that's how few players are actually in that room. But this is how you supplement. This is how you patch up the hole. I know I keep saying that, but really this is what it feels like. Getting guys with multiple years of eligibility, guys like Jalen Satchell out of the portal. Maybe hopefully they could be a good depth piece this year. And then next year, of course, I'm sure they will still be active in the portal looking for a day one starter. And I got to stop myself. I know it's weird that we're talking about the 2025 season this often, but really these are the moves that Michigan State is making to help what is going to happen in 2025. That's what I see from the last weekend in portal and high school recruiting activity here. So in short, yeah, Jonathan Smith, he gets here early December and he opens that door and says, this is cool. It's nice to meet you, fine gentlemen. Where's everyone else? Where are the guys that are going to be here in 3 years, for example, for either the linebackers or the defensive tackles? And then when everyone in the room says, "Oh no, this is it. We don't have any of those young players." Yeah, Jonathan Smith probably had an aneurysm and then got right to work. Now, this isn't the only perhaps defensive tackle that Michigan State will add. I'm sure they still will be active. And as far as linebacker goes, they could very well still be active in that room too. We're going to talk about that visitor coming up here. Linebacker, former Michigan Wolverine. And that's right. We just got our jimmies rustled last week because Jaden Mangham was visiting Michigan. And well, Sparty, you don't seem too upset about this visit to East Lansing. What's the big difference? Again, it's easy. I'll tell you in a hot second. But first, you need to talk your ear off about FanDuel Sportsbook. My goodness gracious. Guys, I've never watched more hockey playoffs in my entire life. And the NBA playoffs, whoo, I get it. Regular season ain't everyone's cup of tea. The first round was kind of a snoozer. But my goodness gracious, yeah, it's popping in the NBA playoffs too. Get all of your action done over at Sportsbook, America's number one sportsbook. And hey, if you're a new customer, it gets even sweeter for all of you out there. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, so much more. Guys, they even treated us all to a nice no sweat same game parlay bet on NBA playoffs. Now, did I win with this $5 bet? No, of course not. You probably already knew that answer. But hey, you know what? That $5 is coming right back to me, and I'm going to reinvest that into some PGA Championship golf this week. Their golf betting is also second to none. They are America's number one sportsbook for a reason. Again, guys, new customers, $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every playoff shot count. It's FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. All right here. We are just talking one side of the ball. We are just talking that front seven this entire show here, and that's not about to change because Semaj Bridgeman visited East Lansing this weekend. 6'2", 230-pound linebacker out of Michigan. That's right, the Wolverines. Originally being from Pennsylvania, four-star recruit out of Pennsylvania to be precise. Now, why are we talking about this? You guys probably already know this, but yeah, we don't talk about just visitors often on this show. We'll do it sometimes, but if we talk about every single kid that visited East Lansing, you guys would get bored. You would lose attention. And I just don't have the attention span for it either, but this was a fascinating visitor, guys. Fascinating visitor because, again, hey, this guy played at Michigan last year. Michigan State is rivals with Michigan. Michigan State just had Jaden Mangham into the portal. And he visited Michigan last weekend. And that upset a lot of Michigan State fans. And then that upset a lot of the Mangham family. There was a whole hullabaloo last week going on about visiting your rival. So here come the Michigan fans online. Rightfully so. Why not? They seem fired up. And they want to know, hey, Sparty, what's the difference here? Oh, you guys are going to welcome Bridgeman in with open arms should he commit? What's the difference with Mangham? You guys are getting your panties in a bunch last week about this. Oh. Now, do you guys actually have a problem with Semaj Bridgeman visiting? Or do you just like to do false equivalencies? Because, look, the answer is very simple why it's so different. It's because I'm a Michigan State fan, and I welcome anyone with open arms to East Lansing. No, of course. No, but on a real note, the situations are a little different. I think anyone with at least two functioning brain cells can kind of realize why Bridgeman's situation is a little different than the Mangham situation. Let's talk about Semaj Bridgeman. All right, guys. I'll give you two choices here. We'll do a pop quiz. Was Semaj Bridgeman a 2-year starter for Michigan? Did he start for the national championship team last year? Was he a leader of the team, so to speak, last year? Or was he just a true freshman that literally played 0 snaps for the Wolverines and is, well, kind of buried on the depth chart even in the spring over in Ann Arbor, didn't even really play in their spring game, and he's looking for a different situation for his college career? So go ahead and guess which one of those situations applies to Semaj Bridgeman. Yeah, it's the second one. Guys, he's been in college for 1 year. Did not play at all that year. And of course, you know, this is the old school way of thinking. We'll just stick it out, cut your teeth, work your way up the depth chart. Just don't jump to the first thing if things aren't going your way. But we see that a lot in the transfer portal. All indications out of Ann Arbor, he wasn't necessarily going to be competing for a lot of reps in the linebacker room this upcoming season. So he bids farewell, and not at like the last hour, like, you know, the situation we got over here. A little before the portal closes, and now he's looking for his next big thing. Okay? Now, if he was a starter, practice as a starter all spring, and then wanted to join a rival, then that would be a little strange, right? That would be a little bizarre that, hey, this leader, borderline captain, so to speak, is now visiting a rival after leaving us at midnight. Guys, if you seriously can't tell the difference between the two situations, I just don't know what to tell you. It seems pretty simple why Bridgeman wants to find a different path. And look, former 4-star high school recruit. I'm sure that this guy thought that he was the cat's pajamas, as most recruits out of high school think, right? All right, he gets humbled, doesn't play at all, goes into the next spring, his sophomore year, not even looking at being on the 2D depth chart. He's probably thinking, oh, man, well, I know I'm a Power 4 player. I want to be a Power 4 player. Where is there going to be a situation, oh, God, where I can, like, resurrect my career here? It seems like things are slipping away very fast for me right now. Whew, I bit off a lot more than I could chew. I got a lot of dip on my chip, whatever cliche you want to use. Well, here comes friendly Michigan State, right, guys? What did we just talk about in the first two segments? gee, if there was a program in Power 4 football that could use some young linebackers to develop because of, well, just talent need, and then also there's no one in the room right now, wouldn't that seem like a good situation for someone that wants to find a good landing spot? I think so. So one guy is finding himself without a quick path to the top of the depth chart, sees a promising Power 4 school with plenty of availability at that position. And the other situation, the Jaden Mangham situation, is a soon-to-be third-year starter, a guy that has cemented himself. It's not a playing time situation for him, the leader of sorts on a team, and then jumping ship at midnight and then just immediately taking visits to rivals. All right, one guy is trying to find his footing very early on in his career when he has no footing at all. The other guy, well, point blank, is just trying to front run with someone, and that someone, well, just happens to be your enemy. Now, let's just use a different example here if that wasn't even something that we could all grasp onto, right? Let's take, for example, Quavion Carter. Okay, he was here for, I think, 1, if not 2 years. I don't know because he didn't play here. Let's say in the transfer portal this season, he visits Michigan. Quavion Carter. That's a name that, like, probably 90% of State fans don't even know, if we're going to be honest. Would there be this whole situation online of people yelling at each other, State fans getting upset that a guy that did not play for Michigan State visiting Michigan this offseason? Like, maybe 6 people would be upset at that. But honestly, I think most of us are rational enough, contrary to popular belief, I think most of us are rational enough to realize, like, oh, yeah, okay, well, he wasn't playing here. Yeah, good for him to, go on a visit somewhere else. It's a little different for a guy that has never played somewhere and a guy that is a cemented starter, borderline leader somewhere. So that is the difference. So, hey, speaking of Semaj Bridgeman, if you've been listening to this whole segment, again, open arms here in East Lansing. We would love to have you. But you know what? I've done some reflecting here, as I often do. And when I do reflecting, it's not like about, how good of like a spouse or how good of a parent I am or a member of society. Like, no, please, come on. I was doing reflection on, why does this Jaden Mangham thing ruffle our feathers so much? And maybe it could also be this. Of course, all the obvious stuff, Michigan's the enemy. Hey, he was going to be a starter. He practiced all spring as a starter, and then he kind of just left in a very bizarre fashion. Was his brother being scooted down to the 5th running back on the team? Did that have something to do with it? Who knows? But also, maybe it has something to do with this too. And comment below on YouTube or email us at lockonspartans@gmail.com if you think this too. But I think that this visit kind of just signals that the issue with college football is just, it's just too many issues too fast. All right. Like, for example, we've had to deal with players being paid, which is like, great. Like, they should be paid. The amount of money they bring into schools, like, that's a different argument. I'm not even going to have the argument. I think everyone has their feet dug in the sand. That's great. Fine. Okay. And then you loosen the transfers a little bit. Sure, whatever. If coaches can leave whenever they want, why not players? Whatever. Like, how bad can a more open portal be? And then NIL collectives start creeping in, and that really over-exaggerates what NIL was supposed to mean. It is just a war out there, and that also impacts the transfer portal. All right, you have rapid opt-outs of bowl games. You have conferences dissolving. You have non-conference games just being so watered down, and a lot of non-conference rivalries are just going away, and all of this has happened in such a short amount of time. So maybe Mangham visiting Michigan also just signifies, like, you know what? Everything that I know and love about college football is just being stripped away at a rapid pace. Like, college football, what it was 5 years ago to what it is today, oh my God, you would break your neck with the whiplash that has gone on. So maybe that also has something to do with it, just the unfamiliarity of where the sport is. The fact that, hey, a guy, again, I'll say for the 100th time this segment, a guy that started for his upcoming 3rd year is just visiting a rival all willy-nilly, and there's no problem with it with anyone on their side. Like, how far detached are we from the traditional, the traditions, the values of rivalries that we all knew and loved a few years ago? Now, that could be one half of it. The other half of it could be, well, God, this really signals how brutal the culture was at Michigan State, where yeah, you could play here for 2 years, 3 years as a starter, and then go jump ship, go to Michigan, and just feel nothing about it. Like, yeah, that's not what being a Spartan dog is all about. Again, I'm not a former player, but listen to a lot of the other former players that have talked about this situation. Don't think I'm too far off base with that thought. We'll be talking with a former player here later this week. We'll pick his brain on all of that. I cannot wait to talk with them. And guys, we got some guests lined up this week. We're going to be talking 5 days a week. Yes, so what? It's the middle of May. It's still 5 days a week here on Locked On Spartans. Now go enjoy the rest of your week. Love you all, and I mean that. Go Green.